Okay, we are now recording live, and I see that Shreyans has managed to join. I'm so happy, and I'm so sorry I gave you the wrong link the first time. Okay, we've just started our InterMine GSoC and Outreachy Q&A webinar. So I have a few reminders. The first one is that we have a code of conduct at InterMine. So this applies both when you are at calls and calls like today, and also when you are, sorry, I'm just muting a few people because there's a bit of background noise. Yeah, so this applies both on calls and also when you are interacting in the chat or with mentors or at any point when you're working on the InterMine project. And what the code of conduct means is generally just be respectful to one another, be nice, be friendly, and treat each other with the respect that you would like to be treated. And I say this not because there's been any problems, because as far as I'm aware, there haven't been any problems. If there are any problems, so have a read of the document. It only takes a few minutes and it gives you an idea of what sort of behavior we think is acceptable and encouraged. But if there are any problems, then you can contact myself. If it's something that I've done, I sincerely hope I don't manage to do that. But if it is, then you can also contact my colleague, Daniela. And our contact details are at the top of the document. We have both of our email addresses there. And that's whether that's something against yourself or whether you feel like you've witnessed something inappropriate. A couple of other notes about Zoom etiquette. So we're using Zoom for the call today. It is some great conferencing software, but you may have noticed sometimes when you're in a call with someone, you can hear traffic behind, or someone has a pet rooster and it's going, so try and keep things muted. So that doesn't mean that you're not allowed to talk. I love it when people talk. You're encouraged to talk. Just when you aren't talking, try and keep things on mute. I know a couple of you have microphone problems, so it's automatically on mute, unfortunately. And oh yeah, if you have any questions, I will try to be monitoring the chat. If I don't respond, it's probably because I've missed you. You can always try and wave at me in the video, or there's also a Zoom functionality where you can raise your hand if you have a question. So try any of those and just keep trying to catch my attention if I miss you. I promise I'm not trying to ignore you. So with those over, what we're going to do today, I will talk a little bit about what InterMine is, just so that you all can get a bit of an idea about why we were founded and why we exist. We also have Deepashri here, who has experience being an Outreachy intern. So she will just spend a couple of minutes talking about her experience as being an intern. It wasn't with InterMine, but much of the experience will be similar. And then you can also ask her any questions you might wish to ask. And then I will talk a bit about application process etiquette and just some of the general questions and answers and advice that we have. Sound good? Excellent. I've got some thumbs up there. Thank you and fantastic, everyone. So, right, what am I going to say first? Did I say what is InterMine? Right, okay, so actually, I don't think I've introduced myself. My name is Yo. Hello, everyone. I coordinate for InterMine. So I coordinate both Google Summer of Code and Outreachy. And I have been doing so for the last 3 years. This is the 4th time that we will be taking interns in through InterMine. This is also the first year that we've actually done Outreachy. Previously, it's only been Google Summer of Code. So occasionally you may come across documentation on the InterMine website that refers to GSoC, but it applies equally to Outreachy this time. And what InterMine is a biological data warehouse. Or to unpack a sentence that means very little, it actually means that if you imagine a scientist who is sitting in a lab and they're doing experiments with test tubes and pipettes and things like that, then they produce data, data about genes, data about proteins, and that data sometimes can be really big and it can be really complicated, which I guess makes sense since it's science data. But what people want to do once their data has been produced is they want to query it. And one of the problems that we have often is that if scientist A does an experiment and then scientist B does an experiment, if they do those, let's say, at the same time, you may end up with one gene that has 2 names or 3 names or 4 names. And then if you have multiple data sets and you want to actually integrate them, but the same genes are called different things, it can be quite complicated to actually integrate those data sets and make them queryable. So what InterMine does is it makes it easy to take lots and lots of different sets of biological data in and then integrate them. And then once those are integrated, if you are more of a scientist who prefers to work in the lab and you don't do programming, then you can use the various website interfaces to query that data and take it out. Or if you are a programmer, maybe you want to use one of our API clients. We have API clients in R, in Python, Perl, JavaScript, Java, Ruby. Oh, there's one, Closure. There might be one more. That's enough anyway. So basically, we make it easy for people to get the data out and for people to query the data. So you'll see lots of different mines. So we are InterMine, the open source software platform, but different people, different research organizations all around the world actually put data into their own InterMines and they run them on their own. So in Cambridge, which is where our core team is based, we run FlyMine and HumanMine, and that unsurprisingly has data for flies and data for humans. Around the world, if you visit the InterMine registry, you'll see that we have InterMines in Japan and in France and quite a lot in America, and they have different types of data in them. Some of them have different plants and beans and yummy tasty things. Then we have wheat and corn, mouse, rat, worms, so on. So there's a lot of different InterMines that cover different types of organisms and different types of data. And we try to interact and stay friendly with most of the people around the world. There's 30-something InterMines out there, and we only maintain 2 of them. So what else can I say about InterMine? Oh yeah, we were formed in 2002, so we've actually been around for quite a long time in software years. That's part of the reason why we are actually migrating our user interface at the minute. So you've probably seen that we have both InterMine and FlyMine and HumanMine and so on. And we also have another tool called BlueJeans. And BlueJeans is the replacement user interface that will replace the older Java-based interfaces that you see at the minute. And the older Java-based interfaces have been around for quite a long time, and they're not so easy to update compared to the modern client-driven architecture that you often see these days. So that's part of the reason why we're trying to replace them. Okay, I think that's all I can think of about InterMine at the minute. Any questions thus far? So it's okay to unmute if you prefer, or type it in the chat, or even just type it in the document, whichever you prefer. Is that Kate? Did you raise a hand? I think you're muted. I can. Oh,
Hello?
hey Kate, I can hear you.
Actually, I had a question a couple of days ago because I wanted to contribute to the second project, but your command already answered that we can contribute to the issues we won, maybe 2 or 3 of us at the same time. So my question is do I understand right that we can record these contributions even if they are not approved?
100%, definitely.
Okay, so we do some work and then we record this, and then it will be approved or not, but it will be checked.
Absolutely, yeah. So part of the reason behind taking contributions during the Outreachy, during the application period for Outreachy, is to see just how you interact with the community and what your coding skill is like. And so those can be shown whether or not we merge everyone. And ideally, we would have loved to have lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of issues available. But I think we ran out pretty fast when we had a lot of interns join. So that's why we're suggesting people do multiple, or multiple people do the same issue.
Okay, thanks.
No worries. Okay, any more questions at this point? Nivedita? Did I say it right? I know, I've already forgotten.
Okay, my question is that if I make a contribution quite early and not towards the deadline, would I stand a greater chance of getting the internship, or it's all
So I don't think that makes a terrible difference. So make 1, 2, 3 contributions. At that point, so long as you've proved that you know roughly what you need to be doing, and I think one of the more important things is actually having a plan. So telling me over the next, is it 12 weeks or 15 weeks? This is what I'm going to be doing, and I understand what I need to be doing. That's probably more important than doing lots of contributions. And also what time the contribution is less important.
and one more doubt. If I contribute to different projects from the same org, does it mean that I'm more flustered and I don't have a proper plan, or does it mean that I'm just exploring different options and trying to find out which I actually like?
I think that's option 2. I think you're right. It's fine to explore
Okay.
and just figure out what really interests you.
Okay. Yeah, thanks.
Cool. Anyone else? So we'll have plenty more spots for asking questions later on, so don't worry, you won't miss your chance. Okay, so I'm going to hand the microphone over to Deepashri if you're ready.
Yeah, now I'm just
Okay, right.
muted.
Thank you so much. So I'll just give you a really quick intro. So hey, Deepashri is someone, she was an intern last year, about a year ago, for the Open Bioinformatics Foundation. So we worked for three months roughly together to redevelop the Open Bioinformatics Foundation website. She has since finished her internship and she's now working in a great job. So she can just give you a bit of an idea of what it's like to be an intern.
Thanks, you. So I had interned last year, and I don't think I can give you like a specific sort of description of what it might be like, because I think the kind of projects that everyone has are a little different than what we had last year, right? So let me just tell you something real quick about the whole process that I had gone through when I was applying. So the first time, as Nivedita said, if you are interested in multiple projects, so at the start, even I was. So I contributed to like 2 or 3 different projects, and later on, throughout say 5 or 6 days into it, I decided that I would contribute to this project full time, because I just liked it more, and it was a matter of preference. So and it was like I was better at sort of web development, so I just decided that this would be what I'm going to pursue further anyway. So I'll just go with this, and plus it seemed more fun. So yeah, and the main thing that so I'll start with what struggles I had to kind of overcome. So the main thing was, I think you might have heard of it, something called imposter syndrome. So it's something where you feel like you are not contributing enough, or that everyone else around you who's also contributing is way better. And more often than not, we're all on similar levels. And even if we're not, it's not that you should feel that maybe you are performing lesser than someone, or just because someone is making much more contributions, it means that you're lagging behind. The main thing that matters is what whatever you're doing, you're giving your best for that. So that was a big hurdle, because when I was participating, there were a lot of amazing people. And I don't remember the username. I think it was Purple Anna. We had this one bug where we had to make a logo, and her designing was amazing. And I thought, like, no way am I going to like make it better than this. I was actually amazed by what she had done. So it was like, okay, fine. Maybe this person is good at this. Maybe I can do something else in a better way. So it's, you try to improve yourself, and with every time you make a PR or you give a contribution, you might receive feedback from your mentor. So you just work on that feedback and try to make it the best that you can by the end of the internship period. So the application period, more like. And if you still have any more contributions to, I think you're still free to make those, right? I don't know if the rules have changed. You're free to do that still, right? So yeah, and one more thing was most of us are not that familiar with the open source community. I sure wasn't familiar and I had absolutely no idea. So it's like a lot of people working all over the world, and it's a totally different experience, and it's something that most workplaces even won't let you have the same sort of experience. Plus everyone is really helpful, but it's easy to feel that maybe you're asking for too much help, but it's just that we're all learning, so it's fine to ask for help if you need it. And yeah, that was the main thing. Those were the main things that I was more concerned about during my application period. And even that was amazing because I got to interact with so many other people. Like some were from Brazil, some were from Poland, like a lot of different countries, and I had never done that before. So while you can interact with the other applicants, make sure that you interact with them a lot because you might learn something from them. Like that's what I feel at least. And about the internship, so the internship was I had to plan it out accordingly because in the application I had to have a sort of a solid plan as to how I would proceed if I were to be selected. So if you're going to go forward with some particular project, whatever project you may be making contributions for, just make sure that you have your timelines ready. So in case you get selected for project A or whatever, so make sure that you know what you'll be doing in the first 2 weeks. By the almost the end of the application period, I think you might have a fair-ish idea of how your timelines might work. It's okay if it's like a little off, but give yourself room in the last week or so anyway, so that even if you run into some troubles, you can sort stuff out in the last week. And during the internship itself, I would say my main fear was actually completing the project. I mean, I know that it's not compulsory to complete the whole project at the end in 3 months or so, but it's like I wanted to try my best to finish it. And if I didn't, I would feel like I left something incomplete. And actually giving something that people can use, that's something that can be of use to everyone, and whoever it is that you're making the project for, just make sure that it's working fine and they actually like using it. So yeah, and let me see what else did I have to cover. Yeah, having a set period of time sort of helps. So suppose say you're used to working from 8 to 5 or so, you can have the same schedule. It helps to have a regular schedule sort of, so that you won't be working from like say afternoon 1 to 9, and then the next day you're working from 8 a.m. or so. So it's kind of bad for your own health as well. If you just mess up your schedule, it's going to like you're going to have sort of a bit of stress when you're like managing your schedules and stuff. So it's better to have a set time, just make it regular so that you won't fall behind. And yeah, what else? Taking breaks. Yes, take breaks, a lot of breaks. It's not that you have to finish, you have to sit for 8 hours and do it every day. Just take breaks and make sure that you're in a good headspace to continue whatever it is you're doing. And okay, I'm talking so much, but I just have a couple more things. So one thing that I found that was really helpful was not being stuck on one bug for too long. If you can't fix something right away, like not even right away, you spend a couple of hours on it. You ask your mentor if this is going to work, if plan A is going to work, plan B is going to work. See if you can find some possible solutions. If it is still not working, it's easy to get frustrated. So just move on for that from that bit for some time and focus on something else. It always helps. So yeah, and all in all, it will be an amazing experience because you is amazing. Like they're just great, and I feel like I could talk at any point of time. Sometimes I would like send a mail, send a message in the group chat at 4 a.m. or 12 p.m. anytime, and I would always get responses, and my questions were always answered. So you have no doubt about that. And it's a great experience and something that you will never ever forget, sort of. And I would say that it will help you give like a real world experience of what work life is actually like. But this is a much nicer version of your normal work life. So yeah. So all the best, and I hope you all get to perform as the best that you can, and you actually have fun doing it, because that's what, if you get selected, that's what you'll be doing for 3 months. So just learn to have fun with it. If you aren't having fun, if you aren't enjoying what you're doing, it kind of might feel like a drag. So make sure that you like what you're doing during your application period as well, because that will be like a precursor to what your future experience might be like. Okay, I think that's all I had to say.
That was so fantastic and really thorough. Thank you so much. Okay, does anyone have any questions for Deepashri? Go ahead.
Yeah, she talked about the imposter syndrome, right? So I wanted to know like what exactly she did so that she could, get out of that imposter syndrome and start feeling good and confident about herself. Because I am in that space right now, and I really want to know that how somebody gets out of it. Like,
I would say if you feel like you are inadequate at some point, just look up more and more topics that are kind of relevant to the project that you're contributing to. Say, for example, the project that I was contributing to had a lot of web development. So I wanted to get further ahead on that a bit. So I studied it and I made sure that whatever I was making, even as smaller contributions, worked fine, as in like, and tweaked it till I felt satisfied with what I was posting. And of course, it might come back when you see someone has made a big contribution. It's like, oh my god, now mine looks so small. But more like just focus on, like, if someone does make a bigger contribution, just take a hint from them. Just a second. Sorry. So just take a hint from them and see what points they are good at. So if you are weak in that aspect, you could improve yourself for that. And yeah, and constantly motivating yourself, because it's not like you know less. You started at some point. Maybe someone else started at some point before you. Maybe they've been studying it for longer. So it's not like you know less. It's just that you're still learning, and even they're still learning. Maybe someone else is weak in some other point. So just think that you have your own advantages as well. Not like you have anything lesser than someone else. That helps. I hope that helps though. But you need to tell yourself that you are not lesser than someone just because someone did something. And you also have a lot to learn. Someone else might also have a lot to learn. So we're all just on the curve, except maybe at different points. But that's fine. That's just fine.
I want to throw a note out there as well. I've been writing HTML and CSS since probably the year 2000. And every now and then, I definitely feel like other people know lots more than me. So sometimes you've just got to pretend that you're not terrified and do it anyway. Anyone, any more questions at this point? Okay, I'm going to assume there's no questions for the moment. So Ruba, were you trying to speak? I'm not sure. I saw your... Oh, Pooja. Initially, we're all confused in selecting a project. How did you tackle it?
Okay, so when I was contributing, initially I had 2 or 3 projects that I was thinking of contributing to, and I went to their issue boards and their GitHubs and commented that, hey, I want to contribute in this, I want to contribute to that. And as I started working on the bugs themselves, I realized that this stuff, like say for project A, something else was a little too different that what I was used to, and which I felt that it's really hard for me to learn. So if it's really hard and it's going to take up a lot of time, it's maybe you can pick a project that you know you're a little familiar with. Like the project that I was in, I had HTML, CSS, some JavaScript, and WordPress. So I was familiar with all that. And it also depends upon the how do I put it? The level that you are at. Yeah, that's what I said just now, right? And even the, what do I say? The community. If there's a lot of people contributing to a project, then I would say your chances are a little lower because there's too many people, and sometimes it's hard to have your own voice heard. So if you are sure that maybe this is where I have more skills with, like I see that there's some project related to React.js. So maybe if someone is familiar with JavaScript, you could go for that because that is a step ahead of that, of learning JavaScript. I'm just like making relations as to what I know right now. So that's fine. Does that answer your question? Just let me know because I'm not sure I answered it properly.
Okay, I'm reading out just for the benefit of the recording. It says yes, thanks a lot. Awesome. Okay, any more questions? Okay, so I just want to say a huge thank you so much to Deepashri for coming in the middle of the night to present to a bunch of people on the internet on your birthday.
It's my pleasure.
And it was really delightful just to have you here again as well. It's been too long.
Yeah, it has a whole year, right?
I know,
Probably
it's
more
hard to
than
believe. So I'm going to talk a bit more just about the general etiquette for applications and InterMine stuff. You're welcome to hang around if you want, or you can head off. It's up to you.
Yeah, I think I should sleep soon.
Sounds good. Okay. So thank you so much and have a great night.
Yeah, you as well.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Right, bye. Okay, for the benefit of everyone else who probably also wants to go to sleep, I will continue. So, let's see, where are we? Application process etiquette. I feel like Deepashri has probably covered a lot of this, but just in case, I will go through it. So, first thing, I think probably all of you know this one, but just in case, come and say hi in chat. It is amazing how much everyone has been helping each other out and giving different suggestions. And that's definitely something we notice, and we want to encourage a happy and friendly environment. So definitely do share and help each other out and support one another. There are some mentors who don't really use chat. You've probably figured out which ones those are by now if they are your mentors. That doesn't mean you're not welcome in chat or anything like that. It just means that for those mentors, I mean, you may have noticed chat's really quite busy, and that they find it easier to use email instead. So we are usually the InterMine Cambridge team. That's the core team. We are normally around roughly 9 to 5 UK time. And when I say we aren't in the office at the minute, we're all working from home for unfortunately relatively obvious pandemic related reasons. We don't work weekends and we don't tend to work evenings. So please be patient if you're waiting for something and it's a Sunday or it's Friday evening or it's Thursday evening. We will try and respond when we can, but it may not be straight away. Okay, with regards to contributions and pull requests, we've discussed those a little bit, but I will just reiterate, contributions are amazing. We don't need more than 1 or 2. So the point about them is really so that we can learn that you've got the skills that you need to have, and also a little bit so that you can learn about projects as well. So if it's not a brand new project, if it's a project that already exists, then making contributions gives you the chance to learn how it works so that you can then make your plan for your project later on. But we don't want people to do 10 or 20 contributions. That's gonna I'm not even joking, some people do. So I mean, you've probably noticed we are having a bit of trouble finding the time to review all of the pull requests. So enough contributions is probably better than too many, because that will just give us more burden to review at the end of the day. Not that we don't love them. Normally, any other time, if we didn't have probably like 50 interns saying, "Hey, I've just made a pull request," they'll be like, "Yeah, that's amazing." But there's a lot right now, so try and keep it sensible, I guess is what I'm saying. If you do make a pull request, it may take us longer to review it. I think making the pull request is more important, and answering issues is perhaps more important than actually getting the pull request reviewed in the longer term. So the pull requests may sit for a bit. Don't think that we're ignoring you. Don't think we don't value it. It's just that we are trying to get answer as many queries as possible with people who need help. We will do our best to review all of those as soon as we have a spare minute here or there. So some hints for a successful application. So when you are thinking about this, make sure that you think you understand what we want clearly, and tell it back to us. So if you can tell us what the problem is, then there's a really good chance that we will know that you understand the project really well. So that's really good. Ask questions, ask lots of questions. We love questions. It's always okay to ask. And I promise that if you are thinking a question and you're thinking, "Oh, I don't know if this is a silly question," 5, 10 other people in the background will be thinking the same thing, and they'll be so grateful that you spoke up and that you asked this question. So there are no silly questions. And that could mean, "Help, I'm stuck with Git. I haven't figured out how to push or how to pull or how to merge." Anything like that is fine. And also, if you ask it in chat, then others may be able to help you out with it. Some people have been doing such a great job at that. But if you're not comfortable asking in chat, it's fine to direct message us. And also, especially in my case, if I forget to answer, please poke me again. It's never that I'm ignoring you. It's just that I've opened that window and then I've alt-tabbed onto something else and I've gotten distracted. And if that happens, I'm so sorry. But you are never bugging me to remind me again. In terms of applications, make sure that you have a clear goal. Make sure that your timeline is sensible. So don't say, "I'm going to work 70 hours a week," because you probably aren't. You're going to be exhausted after maybe 1, maybe 2 weeks of that. So we're looking for 30 hours. That's reasonable. 30 to 40 hours. You know, like Dipashu said, take breaks. Don't think you have to be glued to your seat for 8 hours or 10 hours. Try and be reasonable about your timelines. And with that in mind, think how much work that you can do in a given week. When you are writing your application, if it's a scenario where you think, well, maybe I could use React or maybe I could use Vue, if you choose one over the other, if you choose a library rather than another library or some tool that you're going to be using, explain what you've considered and why you've considered them and what you ended up with. So you could say, well, actually, I decided that I really didn't like WordPress because it requires PHP and then you'd have to have another server for the PHP, or, you know, basically justify your decisions when you're thinking about what your plan is for your application. And then my final bit of guide for when you're writing your application plans, if you're not sure, should I make a contribution or should I be working on my plan? The answer is almost always work on your plan. So a really well thought out plan and 2 pull requests or 1 pull request is a lot better than 10 pull requests or 10 contributions and a sketchy plan, because we want to know that you have you have a good idea of what you're going to be doing over the next few months. And so a good plan is essential. Let me see. Oh yes, so this is especially for Google Summer of Code. If you are applying and you've written up your proposal, share them with your mentors early and share them often. This is also relevant to Outreach. It's just that Google Summer of Code deadlines are in about 2 weeks, so it's a bit sooner. So write up a document, think what you're going to be doing, and say I'm going to be doing week 1, I'm going to be doing this, week 2, I'm going to be doing that, something along those lines, and share it so that people can give you feedback and say, actually, this isn't quite the right direction. How about doing that? And if you share it early, we can give it feedback and you can share it again, and maybe you'll give you feedback again. If you share it at the last minute, especially if other people are asking for things at the last minute, we may not have time to actually review it and give you time to get feedback. So if you haven't started trying to make notes and write things, now is a really good time to do that. And even when it's really early, don't worry about it. It's okay to share. So long as there's something of substance in that document, just share it with your mentors and say, hey, this is what I've been thinking about doing. What do you reckon? If you are following along in the document, if you look at the submitting applications section, we have a Google Summer of Code proposal from an accepted student in 2018. That's Nupur Gunwant. So she worked on our InterMine Python client in 2018, and she actually came to work in the office in 2019. So she was a returning student with us, and she shared her Google Summer of Code proposal. And then Dipashri has also shared her Outreachy project application as well. So you can get an idea of what a good intern application really does look like in terms of the depth and in terms of the sorts of bullet points and things we're looking for. So I would highly recommend reading through both of those to get a good feeling. Once those are written, once everything is all submitted and we are trying to choose who are going to be our interns, we have a grading system. That grading system is public. So if you look through our grading criteria, you can get an idea of the types of thing we're looking for in a project. So once again, it's worth having a read. I apologize because at this point I'm just assigned 3 documents for homework, but they are very useful. If you wish, we even have a proposal template. I said that's for Google Summer of Code, but honestly, it would give you an idea of the sorts of things we're looking for Outreachy as well, so that's fine. If you're applying for Google Summer of Code, remember that you can submit up to 3 applications, and they can be at the same organization or it can be different organizations. I would always suggest spreading it across different organizations just to really make sure you have a good chance. And the other thing is, if you're considering applying for multiple projects, that is okay to do, but only if you really have the time. So if you are thinking, well, that project's interesting and so is that one, put a full application together for project A. If you still have time, put an application together for project B as well. Don't try and do both, because one good application is more likely to get you accepted than 2 half applications. So don't try and spread yourself too thin. And if you are eligible for both Google Summer of Code and for Outreachy, if it's one of the 3 projects that is both Google Summer of Code and Outreachy available, then do apply for both, because that will make things slightly more flexible for us in terms of selecting slots for interns. Okay, so I've got some questions in the general questions and answers section. You can add some yourself if you wish, or ask questions verbally. Feel free to also type them in chat. So I noticed there's one from Shreyans. Once the coding period begins, what mode of communication would the mentors prefer for updates in general? And would it principally be video or text-based interactions? So I can speak for myself. I tend to, with a mentee, if they're a student or an intern, I tend to have a video call once a week and then email and chat the rest of the time. If anything really big came up, then we might also have a video call then. So I remember last year we had a really big bug, It was horrible. I never ever want to see that bug again. But basically what myself and one of the interns did is we set up a Zoom call and we sort of sat working together in the same room and just hacking on how we could fix this. So sometimes co-working like that can work really nicely as well. But different mentors have different approaches to this. Most mentors I would encourage to meet at least once a week through video. If video doesn't work for you for some reason, that would be fine too. We're not like going to say if your video doesn't work that you're not eligible to apply. But basically, I would say if you get to the coding period, agree with your mentor what the project norms are. So you'll tell them, I'm probably going to be working from, I don't know, 9 to 5 or 10 till 6. And, you can always contact me on chat and email. And the mentor will do the same with you. They'll tell you when they're available and how they're available. Anyone else have any more questions at this point? I've been talking a lot. You're welcome, Shreyans. Did I pronounce your name right, by the way? Excellent, excellent. People mangle my name all the time. I guess that makes me really wary. Okay, does anyone have any questions about any of the specific projects? I'm just scrolling through. I don't think there's any new ones at this point in time. I think these are all from last time. I'll just leave the uncomfortable silence hanging for a moment. Remember, it's okay to type in the chat or in the document, or just to unmute yourself as you prefer. Okay, so I think I see what someone's typing. Hey. Okay, are we targeting all the visualizations in the Google Doc you shared earlier, or do we decide that based on the timeline? You got it, my friend, it's number 2, timeline. So you are investigating what needs to be done at the minute, so you're probably getting a really good idea about how long you think each of the visualizations will take. So that's one of the things we definitely look for. Is we don't want you to try and cram too much into an unrealistic timeline. We'd rather see that you've thought about what needs to be done. And then justify that in your timeline. Okay, cool. Right, so I am getting a lot of dead air. I don't want to leave it too much longer. I know for a lot of you it's absolutely the middle of the night and nearly bedtime. I have to be honest, I thought when I was setting this time slot that I was setting it for America so that Americans wouldn't have to get up really early. Instead, I think I've just made many people in Asia stay up really late. So thank you so much. So yeah, I think that's everything. Unless anyone else has any final questions or comments, then I will say have a great day or night. Cool. So thank you everyone for coming. And you're welcome, Ruba. It's been lovely to see you here. So don't forget to wash your hands and have a great night. Bye all.